Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 broadcasting on Channels Television live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories now. The President considers strengthening security in the Gulf of Guinea with a new multinational task force set to begin patrol. CCT chairman accepts new charges from federal government lawyers against Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki. Senate President pleads not guilty to new corruption charges preferred by the prosecution. People's Democratic Party zones chairmanship of the PDP to the northeast ahead of National Convention. And the United Nations describes the situation in the Syrian city of Aleppo as catastrophic after dozens of people were killed in attacks on targets, including a hospital. Do remember, all our top stories can be found on our website. It's channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Do visit m.channelstv.com to view us live on your mobile device. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows phones from the respective stores. When you're done downloading, we do urge you to please interact with the Channels Eyewitness feature on our Android, our iOS and Windows platforms. If you've got pictures or videos you'd like to share with us, simply tap on the Channels TV app on your device, swipe to reveal the Eyewitness menu and follow the instructions. Here are some photos you sent to our Eyewitness portal. First is this photo. It was sent in from Pt.2 area of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, showing children of school age playing on the street. Our Eyewitness reporter says these are Almajiris, pupils who are out of school, and is asking the government to take these children into custody. And this photo was sent in from Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. It shows an overloaded vehicle. Our Eyewitness reporter wants traffic wardens to be on the watch for road safety offenders. Our next photo is from Asaba, the Delta State capital. It shows a crowd carrying placards during a protest. Our Eyewitness reporter says that these are Delta State contributory pensioners protesting the non-payment of their pensions and gratuities. They are asking the state government to look into their plight. And staying in Delta State, this photo was sent in from Warri, shows a collapsed bridge. Our Eyewitness reporter wants state authorities to fix it. And finally, is this one from Lagos State. It shows refuse indiscriminately dumped along the Oshodi-Apapa highway. Our Eyewitness reporter calls on the residents in the area to show more concern for the environment. We do sincerely thank you so much indeed for sending in those pictures, as we ask that you keep them coming. Ahead of the National Convention of the People's Democratic Party in May, the leadership of the PDP has zoned its chairmanship position to the northeast. This is the same region where the incumbent chairman of the party, Senator Alimodu Sharif, hails from. The zoning committee of the party submitted its recommendations to the National Working Committee at a closed-door meeting in Abuja. Addressing journalists after the meeting, the national chairman of the party says that all recommendations by the zoning committee have been approved by the National Executive Committee. Mr. Alimodu Sharif, however, declined comments on whether he will contest for the chairmanship position during the party's convention.
All the zoning position that was brought by the zoning committee has been accepted. So I will ask them to give you the papers for the zoning committee. You can see it and then you can... Sorry? Sorry.
We understand the chairman you are
These ones are my personal decisions. When I make up my mind, I let you know.
INEC is under fresh pressure to conduct by-elections for senatorial seats in Rivers, Kogi and some other states. But for INEC, the huge sum of money needed for by-elections is making it a bit difficult to pick a new date for these elections. For them, it is easier to conduct a general election. With this new pressure, how much longer will INEC wait to have these elections conducted, especially because the people have been living without representation at the National Assembly? In addition to this, INEC is releasing fresh electoral guidelines that would make voting and elections go on simultaneously. Accreditation process shall comprise authentication and verification of voters using the smart card reader. Accreditation and voting shall commence at 8 a.m. and close at 2 p.m. and other guidelines. Well, joining me now to discuss the new INEC supplementary guidelines and regulations is Ezenwa Nwangu, who heads the Partners for Electoral Reforms. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Now, looking at the guidelines, is there any difference, do you suppose, from what was used in Bayelsa and in River State?
Yeah, thank you, Gimba, for having me. I think the major difference would be that we used to have a system that election begins at 8 a.m. and you have accreditation and then go home to come back at about 1 o'clock to start voting. But now the simultaneous system means that as soon as you're accredited, you get to vote. That is being tested, and the value for that will be that there is a consideration that when people vote and go home, many of them eventually do not come back. I mean, accredit and go home or leave the space. Many of them do not eventually come back to vote. That will bring some increase, perhaps, the number of people who eventually cast their votes. Hopefully, and that is. But in significant terms, there is not much difference in what we used to have and what we have now.
Let me just take it from your mouth. Significantly speaking now, is it that INEC would choose to release supplementary guidelines and regulations for conduct of elections?
Well, I think INEC is reacting to the pressure in terms of the experience, lessons learned from, most of the supplementary elections that we have had, and even the general elections. So the lesson learned will be, how do we increase the number of people participating? How do we push back the tendency to also cause violence by wanting to snatch ballot boxes and all of those things that have characterized our electoral system? And then basically that will be what INEC will be seeking to do. But my sense generally is that in spite of whatever guidelines we are putting up, if the attitude of the actors, the stakeholders, the electoral stakeholders is not reformed, we may not get the kind of result that we're looking for. And that is the politicians, the security agents, the voters themselves, and then the INEC officials. If they don't reform their attitude in terms of how they approach elections, no matter what guidelines that you put on the ground, it will make no meaning. If you remember, politicians have had to sign code of conducts in time past. These guidelines, the ones that we are trying to improve upon, were observed in the breach to a very large extent. So it's more to do now with some attitudinal change, more voter education, if you like, more election education, not just voter education, so that even the actors themselves, you have candidates who are running elections who never bother to read the guidelines for the elections they are participating in. And so when you hear them make comments, you ask yourself whether they actually know the times of engagement for the process that they are involved in. So my sense is that we need to work towards some real attitudinal change to be able to make whatever documents, whatever reforms we're putting on the ground make any meaning for us.
Mr. Ezenwa, in order to avoid going round the circle, are these new guidelines, are they really new? Because when you read them, it is pretty much what has been practiced by INEC during elections in the recent past.
Well, Giba, we've not been accrediting and voting at the same time. So that's some incremental progress that we're able to now do accreditation and cast our votes. It's something that we are testing out to see whether that will improve the number of people participating. So generally, you can't say exactly that that's what is being done before, but all of this is geared to see whether our electoral system, our elections can meet international best practices, and it's just the cooperation of every stakeholder that will be required to make it work.
The big question that everyone will want to know and want to see translate into results is that are these new election guidelines, will they bring about credible, acceptable, free and fair elections?
Credible elections, fair elections depend on a lot of more other things than just the guidelines. The first will be the attitude of the politicians themselves, their readiness to accept processes and accept outcomes. That will be important for credible elections. The next other thing will be professionalism and high integrity on the part of the EMB itself, and neutrality and impartiality on the part of the electoral management body. Once we're able to get that, and then the security agents conduct themselves professionally, ensure that they are not working for any of the players within the electoral process, the guidelines will then make meaning. Because once you have a guideline and the attitude of these actors and players and stakeholders within the election environment is not anything towards ensuring that these guidelines make a meaning, will not work.
Mr. Ezenwa-Nwagu, of course, heads the Partners for Electoral Reforms. I want to thank you so much indeed for talking to us here on the news at 10. The 36 state governors now have a window to get some additional funding from the federal government, albeit not the bailout. What the president has approved for the state governors is a refund for sums spent by the governors for maintenance of federal roads and other expenses incurred on behalf of the federal government. President Muhammadu Buhari also says that he will establish an interministerial committee to study a fiscal restructuring plan for the federation, which was presented to him by the governors. However, the president, Muhammadu Buhari, asked the governors to understand that while he is ready to do all within his powers to help the states overcome their current financial challenges, the federal government also has funding problems of its own to contend with. In the meantime, governors of the 36 states of the federation are asking the federal government to review the revenue sharing formula. The state authorities insist that what comes to them should be increased because states are the custodians of the natural resources in Nigeria. Chairman of the Governors Forum, Alhaji Abdulaziz Yari, said this while briefing State House correspondents after a meeting held with President Muhammadu Buhari on how to resolve economic challenges. Our State House correspondent, Chukwuma Onokusi, reports.
Nigerian state governors converge on the council chambers to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari and the Vice President, still in an effort to find a lasting solution to the financial dire strait they found themselves in. They say nothing has been as embarrassing to the state governors as a situation where some of them cannot pay salaries of workers in their states. Beyond the bailout fund from the federal government, they have listed a program for the federal government to restructure the state's economy in the short, medium and long terms. The president was said to have graciously accepted their demands and has asked that a committee comprising the vice president, the minister of power, works and housing, be set up to look into all the matters.
From short term, we are looking at situation whereby our own funds that are hanging since 2005, lying from the Obasanjo exit of Paris Club, some of the money that were not paid, so the state are having their difficulties. So if state can get one or two things from there, we'll get relief. And also the loan restructured and ECA and the bailout loan that we start paying, we are looking for moratorium for 18 months so that we can be able to strategize. The beloved IGR is just not over a night. Part of the medium term, we are looking how government will look at the revenue mobilization formula on sharing of resources, which is overdue for the past 10 years. And at the same time, instead of asking, the state has committed their resources on undertaking the federal program, more especially roads and airport. So we requested that we know that President has put in a committee in place. So therefore, that committee should hasten their work and complete and present it to Mr. President so the state can get relief.
Some of the governors say what they are asking for is imperative.
Economy. And it was quite a good meeting, but it's more reassuring that things will get better. And I want to appeal to Nigerians to understand that the present economic predicament we find ourselves is not the making of Mr. President or any of this or the government, but some natural forces and some man-made forces, which has been long before now.
Obviously, you see, states have been really hit by the depletion of the revenues, and of course it's going to impede on the activities. So it's only necessary we sit with the federal government, who's also hit, and work a strategic way forward.
We have a president who recognized that he is not just president of the federal government, he is the president of the federation, of which the states are part. And regardless of our political affiliation, and this is very important, regardless of political affiliation, everybody is able to ask this president to give him support, and is giving across the divide. Whereas in the recent past, some PDP governor got to 2 billion naira from Ecology Fund. We APC governors, we were not giving. But we promise to be different, and I'm happy that this president is showing that difference.
The next few weeks will determine if things will really get better as the governors envisage. For now, Nigerians are waiting to see what will be the outcome of the meeting by the various committees set up to look into the situations faced by the 36 states of the Federation. Chukuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
When the News at 10 returns, a non-governmental body, the platform, canvasses a people-driven economy for Nigeria. Join us again.